Okay, so everybody is consenting, correct?
Yes. Well, except Robbie is.
Robbie doesn't need to consent, but as students, you're consenting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if not, please let me know right now, because we'll stop what we're doing. We'll go a different direction. So I've asked Robbie to join us. Robbie is a friend of mine. I've known him for quite a few years. Can you hear me okay, Robbie?
Oh, yes, absolutely fine. Absolutely.
And is the video quality okay on your end?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Very good.
Okay. So we have 7 of 8 students with us today.
Mm-hmm.
And we're missing one, but this flu is going around, so it got the best of him. But what I wanted to do is really kind of introduce you and let you share some of your background.
Okay.
I've talked to you a little bit about what the subject is that we're covering tonight, and I thought, maybe you could help enlighten us on some of your experience in doing work in another country in particular. So I'll let you take it.
Okay. All right. Hi, guys. How are you? My name is Ravi, and I am a structural engineer. Now, originally, I am from India. So when I graduated from India in 1980 with a degree in civil engineering, I came to United States for my graduate degree. So I went to Ohio State for my master's degree in structural engineering, and then I did my another degree in MBA. Since '83, I've been working in the code, regulatory, or consulting or construction field. So like I've got, experience from different sides of the table as related to the construction industry. And I have experience both in India as well as in the United States. So most of my experience out of now 35 years of experience, most of it is in code regulation, building code departments. And then 8 years is in building construction, which was in India. And out of those 35 years, I have had some consulting experience where I have designed few buildings and few bridges in Cleveland, Ohio, and in Oregon also. Now, in addition to working for local jurisdictions, I have also worked for Oregon State Building Code Division for about 9 years. And I was the part of the team that adopted the state building codes. And I was the staff for their board, which is called Building Code Structures Board. And then I was the staff for their Structural Engineering Committee, Energy Conservation Committee, and Accessibility Committee. So we used to do a pretty extensive, this was the time from 98 to 2007. I think in 2005 onwards when they started diluting the code adoption, the technical aspect of that. But till that time, it was very robust and very pretty detailed. In 2007 is when I left state of Oregon and joined Clackamas County as a structural engineer because I wanted to enforce the code which I had been adopting for the last 9 years, And now I am working for Clark County as the functioning title is structural engineer, but the given title is they call me as a manager responsible for plan reviewers over there. So that's my background in a very nutshell. Now, when I worked in, then I have worked for ICC also for a while in their Whittier office in California. And that was very enlightening experience because I used to get calls from all over the country. And first of all, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Good, great. So now working in with ICC, that was a very enlightening experience for me because I used to get calls from all over the country. And I was surprised that Pennsylvania is where people were, they were just getting on board with the building codes, like ICC codes, and the kind of questions they used to ask used to kind of make me wonder, where they had been, all this time. Now, Minnesota used to be something similar to Oregon. They had a similar kind of building codes over there in Minnesota, and the setup over there was similar to Oregon, where the state agency is overall responsible for all local jurisdictions. So with that background, earlier I used to consider building codes as the holy grail kind of thing, like you don't touch anything in it. Whatever is there in the code is very pious and is based on a lot of those things. But being part of the building code adoptions at the national and at the state level, I know the stakeholders play a very important part in what goes into the code. So keep that in mind, that if there is some requirement given in the code, some of them are based on life experiences, like 4-inch opening in the guardrail versus 6-inch. Why 4-inch in a residential? Why? Because they had a lot of kids, sticking their neck or head in it. So they reduce that. So similarly, like when you have a requirement in the code where they require a 3-inch by 3-inch as plate, washer plate between the anchor bolt and the sill plate, that was introduced after the that the earthquake in 90 something here in California. So, they looked at a lot of the failures over there, and they established it instead of a 2x2, if they had a 3x3 washer plate, that would work. But there is no scientific analysis behind it. Some structural engineer came up with that number and they adopted it. So that's how the building codes are adopted. But I'm not here to talk about the building codes in USA. I'm here to give you some background about how things are done in India. So in India, they have one building code called National Building Code, which is something like IBC over there. And it's a pretty detailed document. And that was based on an earlier version of a standard there called ISI 456, which was ISI stands for Indian Standards Institute, which is equivalent of what we have here called ASTM and those kind of standards. So ISI 456 was dedicated for a long time till about 80s to the construction field. So they had all kinds of requirements stated in there. Then they developed a national building code, and which was mainly based upon the British building code. Because India used to be a British colony for a long time. So Britain has a lot of influence on what India does within the country. So National Building Code was developed based on that. Now, all individual states, they adopt their own building code within the country. Primarily, that is based on the National Building Code, but they have their own, the individual tweaks, like we have in Oregon. The state BCD adopts the National Building Code, like IBC. And so I have an example here. I printed a copy of a building code. Can you see? Can you read it? Is it clear?
Haryana.
So this name Haryana, that's a state in India, and then they adopted this building code in 2017. It's only 130 pages long because they refer to the National Building Code and a lot of other things, but they have their own state-specific requirements contained in this code. So this code is adopted by the state agency called as the Director of Town and Country Planning. That's the state agency name that adopts this code over there. and it's adopted through the committee process, something similar to what we have here. So the, public input is received, and then they adopt this code. Now, where India differs from USA is, like in Oregon, the state agency gives the program to a local jurisdiction, and every local jurisdiction have their own building department. In Haryana state, where this building code is, that director of town and country planning, they would have their regional offices throughout the state. And each regional or district office will, will cater to the permit and inspection process for the areas falling under their jurisdiction. So you go to your district office to apply for a building permit. Now, this code is available online there. So that's how I was able to print it sitting here. And it's free of cost. You don't pay anything. And then you apply for the building permit. Now, when you apply for the building permit, drawing requirements are the same. Like we have here, you have to provide site plan, elevations, floor plans, all the details, all those plans requirements are the same. Then they do a planning review and then a building review. Now, what they do is, a part of your permit application, you have to provide a certification from the architect and the structural engineer. So those two certifications go along with the permit application. Architect states that he or she has designed this building according to the building code and it meets all the requirements. And the structural engineer does the same thing. In addition to that, they include a list of all the materials that are going to be used on the project. So like, if you're using wood, what kind of wood, because wood is a little expensive over there. So they want to know. Similarly, concrete, and they want to know what kind of finishes. So you have to spell out everything in another certificate that's attached with the permit application. Now, when you apply for the permit, you get 15 days to get a response. If you don't get a response within 15 days from the department, you're deemed or assumed to have got the approval and you can proceed with the construction work. So now once you start the work, the building department relies heavily on the project architect and the structural engineer to provide site inspections. And I believe the reason they do that is they don't have a lot of professionals on board, as their staff. And I guess they can't afford it because they don't charge much fee either for the permit fee. When you apply for a building permit, it's literally free. The amount you pay is minimum. And so, but then for the applicant, the cost is there because they end up paying to the architect and the engineer for providing all those inspections. And then the architect and engineers, they provide their periodic inspection reports, which is something equivalent to what we call here as special inspections. But special inspections we reserve here for those items which the building inspectors don't inspect, or they don't have the time to provide those inspections. But over there, the reliance is very heavy on the architects and engineers to provide those inspections and provide those periodic reports to the department. Now, the department always reserves the right to come and inspect your property and on their own, and they can find violations. And if they find violations, then that's a big deal because that means it reflects on the competency of the architect and the engineer also. So it's not only you as the applicant who is penalized, it's the architect and engineer. It's reflected on their reputation also. So there is a negative motivation there that, everyone complies with it, with the work. And once your work is complete, then you apply for certificate of occupancy. So there is a form that needs to be filled out for certificate of occupancy. And along with the form, you attach as-built drawing. So that shows the variation that might have happened during the construction. As-built drawing becomes part of your permanent record there. And the architect and engineer also certifies that the construction was done according to the code, according to the approved set of drawings, and then they list any variations that might have happened. So that's the whole process in a very brief, about the permitting process. So, and then I think the validity of the permit is 2 years for residences. And that 2 years means you have to complete the construction within 2 years. And if you're not able to complete the construction within that time, you request that, and the extension is automatic. You get the first extension for another 2 years automatically. So they literally give you 4 years to complete the construction. And that's all in a brief I have about you, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have. So.
You guys have some questions for him?
I got a question. Because of the
Can you hear okay?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because of the strictness of the legalities when it comes to building design and who's responsible, does that leave a lot of room for unpermitted work? Do you find that a problem? More so?
Yeah, you're right. But is the economy plays a big role. So when I was growing up, land wasn't that expensive. So people would build without hiring any professionals, without getting any approvals, and they would just build, and the mason would be your designer and builder and everything, he would do everything for you. But now, majority of India, the land prices have gone up so much that people want value addition. They want value out of their construction. So that's why there is a motivation on their part to get the best design possible on their land by hiring professionals and following the rules. Because now, if they get into some sort of legal trouble by not getting a permit and then doing the construction, and then the things came to a point where they have to demolish the building because it was constructed illegally, they stand to lose lots and lots of money. So I think it's the economy which is forcing people to be more honest and compliant. Earlier that wasn't the case when I was growing up. I saw the other side of that too. But nowadays I see that people are more aware and more compliant to the regulations.
So you said that they demolish buildings if they don't try to go in and have an architect kind of, okay, yeah, this will work. The state comes in. Does the state come in and just say you have to demolish it if you're going to build something, or can you get an engineer and an architect to come in and partway through?
I think majority of the time they do reach some sort of the agreement which is mutually acceptable to both the parties. I think the focus is more on life safety issues, but sometimes I've seen politics play an important part also. Like if you happen to build a big castle over there without permit, and you have irritated some big politician or somebody, then that's your building is doomed for demolition, definitely, because you don't have that much political clout as your enemy has. So those things are there. But otherwise, keep in mind, this is India, where what is more important is who you know than what you know. So that's why that's why I said demolition, because over there, the position which Dan Carlso is holding right now, the building official, he would be the king in India. So because of the power that he would have. Whereas over here, as a public employee, we are held to much higher standards, and and we are questioned every day, and we have to justify our position here, but not over there. So it's a little different. But the good thing is that there is more and more compliance, and people are trying to follow the regulations. But I think they're still a little far away from being at the level where our country here is.
So by virtue, when you talk about states, do you know approximately how many states they have in India?
Yeah, it's 22 states and 4 union territories. Like Washington, D.C. is a union territory, like that. So 4 of them, and then 22 states.
And then the population there is in what kind of range?
Is 3 times the United States.
Okay.
So the math is very simple. The area, India is 1/3 the size of United States in terms of the area, and population-wise is 3 times the population of United States. So it's a 9 times difference here.
Wow.
So
So much more dense in terms of people in cities, especially.
exactly. It's much more dense, but it used to be one good thing I've seen with and I give a lot of credit to the rise in the real estate prices, that people have demolished older buildings and they have come up with newer buildings where you have all underground utilities, open spaces. Now they're more focused on energy conservation, like solar panels and rain harvesting. That's part of the building code, and you get credit for that. And so, people are becoming more conscious because by getting it designed in a better and organized way, they're getting more for their money, so they can be socially responsible too, so.
Very good, very good. Nice.
So with your architects and your engineers essentially performing your inspections, and so you have an approved set of plans, but is there any safeguards to prevent any corruption? I mean, you can certainly aftermarket parts if they're doing the inspections, fasteners, connectors. So, I mean, are there any safeguards in there to prevent that? I mean, other than reputations and that sort
Well, yeah, you're right. Safeguards is only there to the extent of the integrity of the architects and engineers, and most of them are good, but there are bad apples, in any category. So, but the majority of them are good, and they would all follow the rules, or rather the requirements, very extensively. And so ISI, Indian Standards Institute, is pretty well developed. They approve the products like ASTM over there, and their approval, if you have a stamp of ISI on your product, that means it has followed some approved testing methodology and this thing. Now, another thing is, ICC evaluation services, and then there is another company, another branch of their IAS. Now they have also entered into India, so they are also doing some product certifications and all those those things. But again, since their entry is so recent, that it's not well known. But ISI is their approval is very well known. Even the owners and the homeowners, they know this is what they have to look for. And like I visited India about 2 years back, and I saw they were using those epoxy anchors. So I was surprised to see those Hilti epoxy anchors in use in India. And they followed all the process, like what is done here. The only thing was there was no special inspector observing their installation, but the architect and engineer they would come back and they would kind of give it a jerk, or those kind of things, just to make sure that things are okay. So, and I it sounds a little primitive, but it has it serves the purpose. Now on commercial buildings, they have much more. Like for high-rise buildings, they have much more detailed protocol. But the majority of the construction is residences, so that's what impacts a common person there. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions before we close?
On as far as like the national building code, and it's adopted by the states, or are they able to change it and do less stringent, code to enforce in the area, or since it's a central governing body, do they have to adhere to the national code, or are the states individually able to adopt?
State has the authority to change it.
Okay.
But most of them don't do it because it's kind of the minimum standard. You don't want to go below that. But except for a few areas in India where we get a lot of snow and other things, I think climatic conditions remains the same for throughout India. What is given in the National Building Code. So state have the authority to change it, and they do. Depending on but they don't mess with the life safety requirements. But like energy conservation, rain harvesting, those kind of things, they may play around with it, those issues. But life safety, they just leave it alone, So.
Thanks.
Any questions? So if somebody was going to travel to India, where would you recommend they head? Where would be the nicest place to travel?
Well, go to any big city. Like New Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Bangalore. They are all comparable to any U.S. city.
Okay.
But if you go to any smaller city, that's where your cultural, you'll be challenged a little bit there. But the good thing is, no matter which part of India you go, people understand English. They may respond back in broken English, but they at least understand, So you'll not be you'll not be left kind of high and dry. And now, even the remotest part of India, you have Wi-Fi, and you have McDonald's, you have Burger King. So when I was growing up, I used to have this problem that, restaurants, they serve you lunch only from 12 to 4. And then they start serving dinner from 7 onwards. So what do you do between 4 and 7? If you feel hungry, there's nothing available. That was my dilemma being raised in India. But now the present generation, 24 hours, whenever you feel hungry, you go and buy the food, is available. So all those, Pizza Hut, thank God it's Friday, the TGIF, all of them are there, So that's...
Well, Ravi, this has been very informative. I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Anytime.
And it's been nice seeing you again.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to let you go. And
okay.
It's been a very big help to our study on other countries and how they administer the codes. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Have a great day. Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys can take a break.
I was gonna go, Dan, real quick. Oh, you'll have to get your courage back up in a minute.
Well, you wait for me to go.
Well, mine fits perfectly with that, though.
You didn't do
Oh,
that.
now that you wrote it, like, just get done writing it?